In this lesson, we're going to be talking about DoS attacks, or denial of service attacks, as opposed to disk operating system attacks. So let's talk about some denial of service attacks. And what I've got here is the website packetstormsecurity.org. And Packetstorm Security goes back a long ways now. It actually got bought by, I believe it was Symantec, it got bought by, and eventually got spun back out, and so it's independent again. One of the things that makes Packetstorm Security really useful is that they store a lot of files and a lot of information. So I can do this search here, and I can look up some information about a denial of service attack. And I'm looking up Nestea, and I'm not looking up Nestea as in something I want to drink. There is a particular denial of service attack called Nestea. And you can see, if I click on it, it actually shows you the source code for this particular type of attack. So this is a particular denial of service attack that was popular a dozen years or so ago. It doesn't really work so well anymore against modern operating systems because it took advantage of some vulnerabilities in the IP stacks that have pretty much been cleared off. So Nestea was, as I said, a popular attack a dozen years or so ago. And there are several other attacks, many of which don't work so well anymore. This is a pretty good attack tool, and it's spike.sh, and what it does is it kicks off a lot of different types of attacks. And again, these are all sort of old school attacks that work against like out-of-band information in packets. They work against vulnerabilities having to do with broadcast systems, like a Smurf attack was a ping message that you sent to a broadcast address, and all of the systems within that network would reply because they got it since it was sent to a broadcast address. That type of attack has long been closed down in most of the world, although there may still be ICMP amplifiers or Smurf amplifiers around in the world. You can do the same sort of thing with UDP that you can with ICMP, and that particular type of attack is called Fraggle. And we should see a lot of other attacks here, like you can see the Nestea, and there's also a teardrop and new tier. Those are all related attacks. There's also the Smurf attack here as well, and there's the land attack, which was an out-of-band message attack against Windows systems. You can do a ping flood. There's a Jolt and a Coke and a Pepsi and La Tierra. So if you want just a list of a lot of different old school kind of attacks in order to figure out what you want to look up here for source code, you could go to spike.sh, and as I said, here's just a list of all of the different types of attacks it supports. Just for fun, let's look up Pepsi and Coke and see what we've got here. So here's Pepsi.c, and here's the source code, and right here's the usage. They'll happily tell you how to make use of it, and it doesn't look like there's anything in here to actually tell you what it does if you don't actually know. But there's that one. Let's take a look for Coke and see what the Coke attack does. And they don't actually have the source code here for Coke. And it looks here like Coke was another out-of-band attack to the 135 port. But Packetstorm Security has a lot of useful information. It's kind of a news clearinghouse, and as I said, it stores a lot of files as well if you want to get into some old-school DoS attacks. If you want to get into some old school DoS attacks and understand how they work and get a better understanding of how they are coded, and you want to run them against different systems just to see what they look like and do Wireshark packet captures and see what the packets actually look like, you can just grab these from Packetstorm and you could compile them and get them running and just run the attacks and see what they look like. But that's a number of different types of denial of service attacks that you're going to run across. And these are, like I said, very old school attacks. More commonplace are where you're going after the application and trying to send malformed data, which of course these are going against as well. But most of the old school ones are going against the actual operating system or the IP stack. And since we've cleaned up most of the IP stacks out there and gotten rid of those vulnerabilities, what's left is really application level attacks or just simple flooding attacks. As people get more and more bandwidth, it doesn't cost nearly as much to just send a whole boatload of data to somebody and just see if the application can handle it or if their connection to the internet can handle it. So that's denial of service attacks.